Hey everybody, I wanted to check in again. I'll be posting video updates every week or two to check in with you all, review anything in our discussion forum posts or our lecture notes, or to announce any upcoming assignments and go into a little bit more detail about them for you all. So today I wanted to touch base about your discussion forum posts thus far. I think we've been having some really strong discussions. I'm seeing a lot of astute critical reading of the text that we've been dealing with thus far. And I really particularly appreciate the way that you're engaging with each other in your secondary responses. I like that there's a lot of piggybacking off of ideas and expanding those ideas. I like that you're able to sort of politely challenge each other and suggest a different interpretation of the readings. All of this is really a great way to start a really fruitful way to start our discussion forum posts. A couple of notes about them. One, if you do tend to post sort of later in the series, if you're posting on, Wednesday evenings, Sunday evenings, make sure that you are thoroughly reading through everyone's posts before you contribute your initial response, so that you know what the scope of the conversation is thus far, so that you can actually add to it in some kind of original way, so that we're not repeating the same points over and over again. It'll also give you an opportunity to kind of look at what questions have been sort of covered, and then to look for other questions that you can potentially review. This way we can cover as much ground as possible when we are going through these works. And also really make sure that you're utilizing textual evidence, that you're quoting from our actual readings when you're posting, particularly your initial responses, but certainly your secondary responses as well. This will allow us to really see how you are justifying your interpretations and reading of these texts. And it's also just really good practice. Like I've said before, it's really good practice for your short writing assignments and also then for your formal two papers. So make sure you're citing, using textual evidence to sort of showcase and support your ideas. Read through everyone's comments and messages before you are posting, especially if you tend to post later in our series. And also look towards other questions that haven't been thoroughly discussed or reviewed yet, so that we can cover as much ground as possible. I don't grade each individual forum post. What I do is I check in with you twice during the semester. Once will be before our midterm papers due. The second time will be maybe 2.5, 3 weeks before the end of the semester, to give you some personal feedback on your discussion forum posts so that you can kind of maximize that grade. Probably for the first one, before our midterm paper, I'm thinking of coming down to campus and scheduling some time where I can meet with you all in person to give you this feedback. If you're not on campus, typically I go to College Ave campus, by the way. If you're not on campus, then we can set up a Skype or FaceTime kind of appointment so that I can give you some of this feedback. The second one will probably be via email. Hey, I've seen you really develop in these particular ways. Here are some other things that you can look to develop as we move into the last 2-3 weeks of the semester. Things like that, just so that you are getting some formalized feedback from me. This is a relatively decent portion of your overall course grade. So I do want to make sure that you're all maximizing that grade as much as possible. And if you have questions beforehand or at any point in the semester on the quality of your responses, you can always email me and I will happily get back to you and give you some feedback early if that's helpful for you. So that's on our discussion forum posts. We are currently, we have until tomorrow at 10 p.m. to finish our current forum on Carter's juicy stories, right? We have The Company of Wolves, which is a sort of modern feminist retelling of Little Red Riding Hood. And then we have The Earl King, both of them super disturbing for different reasons. But we're going to sort of look at the ways in which Carter is kind of pushing the envelope in terms of the function and purpose of fairy tales that we've seen in our previous pieces that we read the end of last week. And also, we're going to sort of look to some new themes that she is potentially developing. I just started to respond to our discussion forum. I'll be doing more of that later today and certainly tomorrow. Tomorrow is Super Bowl, y'all. So if you want to get your posts in earlier so that you can chow down on your wings and enjoy the game, or if you're like me, enjoy the halftime show, do that. This way you're not waiting until sort of the last minute and are distracted. And Carter really deserves your attention. She's very salacious and mischievous and powerful and very, very seductive writer. So give Carter the attention that she deserves. And remember, Carter is the translator of Perrault. So that's an interesting dynamic to remember, especially when you're looking at the kind of the moral that she provides at the end of all of Perrault's versions of his fairy tales. They tend to have somewhat of a wink wink tone to them. And I think you can potentially see where she was going with that a little bit more now that you're reading her versions of these fairy tales. So be on the lookout for that and make sure that you're posting your initial and secondary responses at a minimum by tomorrow at 10 p.m. when that forum will close. Another important announcement, our first short writing assignment is going to be due next Sunday. Okay, so it's going to be on Boccaccio's writings, the Decameron, which we will be moving into this week, along with the fairy tales. I have specific instructions posted under resources towards the bottom. It says guidelines for short writing assignments, and it really gives a sort of detailed instructions for what I'm hoping for in these what the function is of these assignments. You should be writing. This isn't a timed assignment. They used to be, but I've gotten nicer, and it's no longer timed. You can complete this assignment anytime between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. on the day that it's due, which will be next Sunday, which is February 10th. What you should do is answer the question that you're given, and you should probably write for about 30 minutes. You can time yourself. 30, no more than 40 minutes. This is not intended to be a full-blown formal essay. This is intended to be a bridge between your discussion forum posts, which are generally more informal in nature. That's the place where you kind of start to formalize some of your ideas, start to experiment with how you're thinking through some of these texts. It's supposed to be a bridge between that and your more sustained, formalized papers, midterm and final papers. So it's a shorter essay, 3 to 4 paragraphs. You need an introduction. You need a clear thesis statement where you're answering the prompt. You need 1 to 2 body paragraphs. And in those body paragraphs, you should be providing textual evidence. You can use your text. You should use your text for the short writing assignments. So you should be using textual evidence, quotes, to substantiate and support your ideas, much like you're doing in your discussion forum posts, much like you will do in your formal papers. And you should have some kind of a conclusion where you echo the ideas that you set forth in your introduction. Okay, so your conclusion is going to be an echo of your introduction and really a sort of echo of the response to the question, which is in essence your thesis statement. You should not be summarizing the text. This is not, I'm not testing you on whether or not you read the text so much as I am testing you on whether you can read the text and then do some critical connective thinking between 2 sets of writings, which is also what you will be asked to do in both your midterm and your final papers. Okay, so not a summary. You can use your text. You should be using textual evidence, approximately 30 to 40 minutes of sustained writing, and you have to submit this work between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. on the day that it's due, which is next Sunday, February 10th. If you anticipate having any kind of conflict or problem, I tend to schedule short writing assignments on the weekends because I know the weeks are crazy with classes, people work, etc. Some people work on the weekends as well. Sunday is usually a day when most people have off, which is sort of my thought process about it. However, if you know in advance that you have a conflict, an issue, you can't submit on Sunday, next Sunday, email me immediately so that we can set up an alternate time for you to complete the assignment. Okay? And I think that that's all that I wanted to say in this update. So, onward with Carter. I can't wait to read your responses. I always have so much to say about this work, so I'm trying to like bite my tongue right now and let people do a little bit more writing before I pounce, before I jump in. Okay. So get going, get reading, get responding, and email me if you have any questions. Bye.